was such a treat to see that again. Of course, you must all be very thirsty after that film. But please stick with us.
Like Bloody Mary afterwards.
Yes, absolutely. Jeremy, perhaps you could tell us, I believe this is a project that Jim Jarmusch had on his mind for a number of years. Could you tell us a little bit about how it came to actually happen this time?
Well, I'm not exactly sure how long he'd been developing it, but I know it had been some years before I became involved. But then another culprit on the movie here is Bart Walker, who's in the room here tonight. And I've been friends with Jim for many years, and in Cannes one year, I've forgotten what year it was, maybe 4 years ago, I got the project and started working with my collaborators, German co-producer Reinhard and French producer Jean Labadie, to put the finance together, and then the movie, and decided how to shoot the movie, where to shoot the movie, and with which players.
And speaking of players, Tom, you're a newcomer to the Jarmusch travelling company, shall we all call it? And how was it that you came to be involved? We have Joanna Hogg's films that you've been in that are very much in a serious and artistic vein, but we also have your superhero movies. So it's interesting to see how you ended up in the Jim Jarmusch movies.
Well, I found myself in New York in November 2011, I think it was, and such is the way of the film business that quite often the film that you're making is different from the film that's out in the world, or different from the film that people are talking about. And I think I was in New York to talk about War Horse, Steven Spielberg's film, and I was just kicking around, and it was a beautiful autumn afternoon. I received a phone call saying Jim Jarmusch would love to meet you. He's in town, and it's a very quick rearrange of the day.
Yeah.
We had a cup of tea, and I hadn't read the script, and I've been a lifelong fan of Jim's films. And we sat down in the middle of the afternoon, and he simply explained the film to me. His first line is such an easy yes in a way. He said, Sultan, you're kind of your character. It's kind of like Hamlet, as might once have been played by Sid Barrett. when do we start? Let's go. He described a film about a man and a woman who were in love and who complemented each other in opposition. Adam was very melancholic and sad and musically gifted, intensely curious about music and science at a particular level, about vibration and how music and physics kind of aligned in that. And Eve is literary and older and wiser and more enlightened. He was the soul of the romantic spirit, and she's a more classical soul. And he said it was Tilda Swinton, and he'd written it for Tilda many years ago.
Right.
And that was the beginning of it, really.
And Jeremy, when you're going towards a Jim Jarmusch film, one imagines that he's such an individualist that he's in control of a lot of it. But is there any such thing as a development process with a film like this?
I mean, the reality of the film comes to bear on the material, which is sort of something very much sort of a fantasy and something very romantic, and then it becomes a reality. And so the film was refined right up until the screenplay was refined a lot, right up until we started filming. And of course, after you find the places you're going to film, where you're going to film, the script took some changes, and to the length, and to what we found, and then the final refinement after finding the actors.
And there were some new things for Jim, weren't there? He's shot in the studio for the first time.
Very reluctant to film.
Digital.
It was very reluctant to film in the studio, and we filmed partly in Detroit, and partly in Tangier, but the interiors of the film were made in Cologne, which is sort of seamless. You wouldn't really know that by watching it. And he would never shot in the studio. He was reluctant, but at the end of the day, he enjoyed being in Cologne for 8 weeks or 7 weeks, or how long we were there. And I don't know how it was for Tom to imagining being in Detroit, in Cologne. It must be quite a strange thing to go into the studio gates and then be in your apartment in Detroit at night. But after a couple of days, Jim got used to that, and it's quite a controlled way of filming.
I love Detroit, but Detroit was the first place we filmed. We shot all the exteriors there, and we were there for about 3.5, 4 weeks. And it's a fascinating city, because once, not long ago, 90 years ago, it was the center of America. It was the busiest, most populous city in that country because of the auto industry, Ford and Chrysler and General Motors. And then after the race riots in the 60s, everybody left, and the structure of the city that very much resembles Manhattan is empty, and I've never seen anywhere like it in the world. And Tilda and I filled ourselves up with it before moving to Cologne. And this is where I should sort of publicly salute our production designer, Marco Bittner-Rosa, who because once we moved to Cologne, inside Adam's house is all a soundstage, and he built it, and he found those guitars, and he found those pictures, and the linen and the wallpaper and the vinyl and all that crazy, wonderful stuff that Adam keeps in his house, and it was like walking sort of between worlds. It was extraordinary.
Yeah, we were talking beforehand, because we're both guitar nuts, about those guitars, and they are the real thing. All those guitars are the real thing, and I can't believe, I'm so envious that Tom has been near some of those guitars.
Very cool pieces of kit.
Yes. Did you do a lot of research into the sort of the kind of, Tangiers, obviously there's Paul Bowles, there's the kind of scene that was there to do with junkiedom, because this is a kind of, they are junkies in a way.
Yes.
And then there's on the Motown, the Detroit side, there's a very strong music tradition. It felt like those were what those two cities were representing. On one hand,
They were both cities were full of ghosts and sort of places that were something else at a certain period, and very decadent and decaying. The cities, and you can imagine that the relationship really worked between the two cities as being them both living in different places. So that was certainly that felt completely right. Of the places to shoot, that you could believe that Tilda would be living in Tangier, and Tom's character would be living in Detroit, especially as a musical base and a literary base, and with Marlowe somehow living in Tangier as well.
And I think everybody got the fact that Marlowe wrote all of Shakespeare. I can imagine John Hurt feeling very pleased about that.
Yeah, he was.
Have we got time for a couple of questions from the audience, perhaps? Do we have a microphone, or can we just shout, perhaps, if we've got a question from the audience? Can I see any hands, please? Yeah, there's a microphone coming. Oh, there's a hand there too. Can we have these two, please?
Thank you. I just want to congratulate you both on a fantastic film. I think it's probably the best film this year. Yeah. Come on, y'all agree. My question is for Tom. I was just thinking of the point when Adam describes LA as a zombie central. And given that you're probably in a point in your career now where you could have pretty much your pick of anybody to work with in terms of directors, auteurs like John Rush or big directors like Spielberg or Joss Whedon, looking at LA, do you think that is it being overrun by the zombies, or are the auteurs getting a look in? There seems to be a constant battle these days, so what do you think?
I don't know. I actually, my experience of LA has been quite benign, it seems like LA is such a big sprawling place, and it has no centre, and the whole myth of Los Angeles is that you can kind of construct your own schedule, because there's no metropolitan rhythm that forces you to collude with it, like London or New York or Paris. And so you can invent your own experience of LA in many respects. And my experience of the city is quite limited. You know, I've always lived on the coastline because I've been working in Manhattan Beach at Marvel. You know, there is an element of zombification, I'm sure, in particular zip codes. But my experience of the place is that there are actually a lot of incredible people who live there. Some amazing practitioners in front of and behind the camera. I'm always constantly surprised by people who I encounter who actually live there. People I think live other places and they live in LA because they find, I don't know, maybe it's the blue sky thinking. It gives them more capacity for invention. But
A lot of vampires there.
a lot of vampires, yeah, a lot of blood-sucking creatures who live at night.
You have a question over there?
Hi, I love the film, Tom. We have a gift for you, actually, but I wanted to know, as an optimist, how did you get into such a pessimistic character? Did you struggle, or was it quite easy? Do you have it within you somewhere? I don't know.
It's a really good question. It was sort of, the way into it was trying to think about immortality, which is a big subject, and really trying to imagine what it would be like to live forever and how your relationship to time would change if you had lived through so many centuries of creativity and genius. If you lived alongside the people he's lived alongside with, the Romantic poets, Schubert and rock and roll, and you know, I love his wall of heroes, Buster Keaton and Einstein and Newton and Iggy Pop, and even Rodney Dangerfield is on there. And I think for Adam, as the soul of Gothic romance, the passing of time, the progression of the human spirit makes him sad. He just can't see. He can't see the light, and it's an interesting place to exist in.
I hate to end it on such a downbeat note.
It's not.
But
It's not.
I'm afraid we have to.
My favourite line, I must say.
Just say something upbeat.
I'll quote Tilda Swinton's character. My favourite line in the film is a line that she wrote, which is when they have that scene around the wooden bullet and before they dance. And Eve says, "Do you still not get it yet? Life is about surviving things, appreciating nature, nurturing kindness and friendship, and dancing."
So we really should. And I'd like to give my thanks to so many people for this magnificent program.